I believe, of people who are happy to not just engage, but willing to take action in order to, you know, benefit who we are, you know, like as human beings, you know. This is fantastic. So well done, brilliant.
Yeah, great to have you on board, Carl. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, really good. Really busy, really busy with work actually. So in times like this, people need technology more than ever, right? So
right, exactly. Aziz, do we have anybody in the? Do we have Dave, or we don't?
Not that I can see, unless Dave is Doa and Ali. They might be using somebody else's account, so
let me just check my mobile. Yeah,
it could be worth inviting them.
We could invite them in.
Yeah.
Carl, do you have any slides at all?
I do. Yeah, I've got a presentation that I'd like to
Excellent,
show, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. I also participate in the organisation of events. Just want to welcome you all to our second event, and we have three great speakers. We've got Dave Fuller from Repowering London, and we have got Dr. Lutfi from Willowbrook Farm, and we have also Carl Hall from AGT Creative IT. So we're basically gonna kick off with Dave. Then after, we're gonna move on to Dr. Lutfi, and we're gonna finish with Carl. Each speaker is gonna give a presentation, and they will be, I believe they will have slides as well. So Dave, when you're ready, we're gonna kick off.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Hopefully, if I click that, you're seeing my slide. Great, that's a thumbs up. So hi, how are you doing? My name is Dave. I am the project manager for an organisation called Repowering London. Repowering London is a community energy development agency, which is quite a bit of a mouthful, obviously. For those of you who don't know what community energy is, it's about creating renewable electricity or energy infrastructure that's owned by the community rather than kind of a large international companies that are usually responsible for installing massive solar farms or wind farms or that kind of thing. So sorry, bear with me. I'm just moving you all across my screen so I can see my notes. So we're mainly about fighting climate change. But as well as that, our aim is to make sure the benefits of renewable electricity are available to everyone, not just those who own their own roofs or have the capital to invest in projects. So Repowering London is about 7 years old. I've been working there for 2 years. So some of this story isn't mine, but I've told it a few times. Repowering started by installing solar panels on social housing. In fact, our first 5 co-ops are on housing estates in London, mainly in Lambeth, which is in South London. In about 2013-14, the government reduced the subsidy that supports the installation of small-scale renewable energy generation so we had to change our model. So after working on social housing and being aimed at social housing, we had to move and start working with schools and community centres. Now, unfortunately, the subsidy's completely gone, but I'm going to get back to that later. So, there we go. This is an overview of the company. This is our model. Basically, we want to create local energy, and we want to use the creation of local energy to empower the communities that we work with. So it's, as you can see in the strategic goals, it's about generating decentralized electricity, but it's also about building local leadership. It's about working with people both inside our groups and outside. It's about trying to create training and employment opportunities so that anybody who's interested gets an idea of how these projects work and hopefully can get their foot into the renewable energy sector. It's about reducing fuel poverty. there's no point creating electricity in a community way if we're going to charge the same amount of money and we're not going to look after those people who are at the sharp end. And it's also about creating social investment, so the opportunity for people to do good with their money. This is our outputs over the last 7 years. So down the right-hand side of the screen, you can see it. We have 7 different co-ops. Oh, 8 different co-ops, sorry. I should have known that. We have 8 different co-ops, which we've developed, working in different parts of Lambeth and across London, working with local people to build. Across those 8 different co-ops, we've installed 670 kilowatts of solar generating capacity. I should know off the top of my head how many houses that is, but I can't tell you. And to do that, we've raised £700,000. As well as installing the solar panels, we run a youth training program. So across the 7 different co-ops, we've trained, it says 84, but I'm pretty sure it's more than that, young people for our youth training program. So the youth training program started off on our second project, Brixton Energy Solar 2, where some of the mums of the estates were interested in the project, but wanted to know what we were going to do for the young people who were living there. So my boss, Aga, essentially ad hoc set up a training scheme, and now that's turned into a 40 hours paid at London living wage training program, where the young people get AQA qualifications, they do work experience where possible, we get them on the roofs, and they learn both about renewable energy, but also about climate change, about setting up a small business, about co-ops and community integration. Our solar arrays, our co-ops, save 144 tonnes of CO2 a year, and they also generate money for community funds. So the model that we work with is we ask people, well, we set up a co-op and we find a place to install solar panels. We then build a financial model around that, we build a business case around that, and we ask people to invest by buying community shares. We then use that capital to install the solar panels, which go on top of the roofs, and we sell the electricity back to the grid and to the site owner. Using the income from that, we pay back our investors, but we also create a community fund which has to be spent in the area which the solar panels are installed. So when we're working on housing estates, the community fund has to be spent on the housing estate where we've installed the solar panels. When we work with schools and community buildings, it has to be spent in the local area. The idea being that if we're going to install solar panels on buildings that have a community value and we need their roofs, then it's important that everybody who accesses those buildings gets the benefit of the profit of the project, not just those who have the money to invest in it. So there's solar panels, but solar panels are kind of only they're the hook. It's more about building movements or encouraging movements of people. It's about getting people together. It's about showing that change is possible and pulling people in around that. So on your screen now, there's 4 pictures of volunteers from across 2 different projects, because people like getting together. The top right event here was our Greener Living Day, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But I think there's 20 or so people in that photo who came together and gave their time to help pull it together. The other 3 pictures are where people have been out flyering, talking about the project, going and talking at shops, and just talking in the areas and sharing the good news of what we're doing. As I said, the Greener Living Day. So this was the beginning of this year for a project that, one of the projects we have called North Kensington Community Energy. North Kensington Community Energy, the name's not that exciting. It's based in the North Ken area. It's where I met Alex. There's lots and lots of things happening in the Ladbroke Grove area. And it is an area with a lot of green groups and a lot of really grassroots green groups, but not much of a kind of overarching umbrella. There aren't the kind of, we do have the Green Party there, but we don't have a kind of usual suspects of Friends of the Earth or some of the other large groups. So as part of NKCE, we decided, rather than talking about ourselves, we wanted to work with other groups to share the good news of what they were doing. So we hired a community centre. We invited as many people as we can. We had 11 groups talking. The top right, you can see a photo of these information sharing sessions we had, where we had people come along and talk for 5 minutes, and then you could go and chat to them for 15 minutes. So the idea was that you could, whatever you were interested in, from kind of global action, as Long Live the Lunchbox, to North Kensington Community Energy, to talking to the Deputy Ambassador of Nicaragua about what they're doing for renewable energy. There was an opportunity for people, rather than to be talked at, to have a conversation and talk to. And downstairs we had various different activities going on, just to make, basically trying to broaden the green horizon, and invite families in and get kind of people interested in green issues who wouldn't normally see themselves as green or environmental. So we do community building. We also do community support. So to the top left, that photo is my colleague Ali, who gives energy advice to residents in Lambeth mainly, but essentially anyone who calls up. So people call up at Ali. Often, actually, if I'm honest, I mean, sometimes they're just asking general questions, but often they are at the sharp end of things. And he's taught himself, and through kind of using various resources out there, how to help people access debt relief for their energy bills, how to help people reduce their bills just by switching, and we also go in and install energy saving equipment. Based off the success of Ali's work, sorry, just to skip back to Ali there, because what he does is actually a really important strand of what we do. He will quite often come in and tell us that he's managed to save somebody £200-300 a year on their energy bills, just by putting in an hour's worth of work. And so obviously, you know, that's quite a lot of money that these energy companies are taking from people who can't afford to do it. So it's, in an ideal world, Ali's actually an engineer and he wouldn't have to give this level of support, but unfortunately social services aren't there. So it's fallen to organisations like us and other community energy organisations to do what we can. Based on the success of Ali's work, we now have 2 community champions who work on estates in which we have installed some of the solar panels, giving that kind of advice and also bringing out together other groups. Repowering as an organisation is now working with other third sector organisations in Lambeth to try and build a bit of an advice safety net. Because often when people come to Ali or our community champions and need support, it's not just their energy bills, it's other issues that are going on. And so we're working with Citizens Advice Centre 70 and any organisation who's interested, basically trying to create a joined up third sector group, essentially, so that can signpost people, not just financial advice, but also kind of counselling support and whatever else we can access. We also, as I said, we do education and training. Our youth training program, I touched on briefly. We try and run that as often as possible. We tend to do cohorts of 15 to 20 young people. It's quite exciting. I ran one in North Kensington a year and a half ago. It's also really tiring, but the young people kept me on my feet. We also do school workshops. So we install solar panels on schools, and whenever we're working with a school, we'll offer to go in and talk to them. So that's led to me going in and giving assemblies to primary schools, or teaching a science lesson to year 7s. We try and make sure that it's linked into the national curriculum as much as possible. And following on from my work of doing that, I noticed in talking to teachers that I know, that the primary school curriculum doesn't actually mention climate change. So the top photo that you can see there, we worked with a theatre writer and 2 amazing young facilitators to create a theatre project for primary school children. So year 5, which I think are 9 to 10-year-olds. The idea being that these dramatists will go in for 2 hours a week for 5 weeks running and teach the young children about climate change and about ecology, but in a very age-appropriate and positive way. So kind of keeping it serious, but also keeping it fun and keeping it accessible. There's quite a lot of writing already about how young people are getting more depressed and seeing the problems of the world out there and not really seeing any positive solutions. So this is an attempt to try and build on that. We were running the pilot, that photo is from the first session of the pilot. It launched in February, so unfortunately we weren't able to finish our pilot before school shut down due to COVID, but we are talking to the funders and hopefully we'll be coming back and going into schools when we can with that in the future, and we'd really love to roll it out to all schools across London and it to be a resource that anybody can use. I clicked the wrong button, sorry there. So as a project manager, my main job is to put solar panels on roofs. This is the bit that I really know about. As I said, the government used to have a subsidy called the feed-in tariff, which they removed, which now means that installing community-owned solar panels on roofs is actually quite difficult. I've left up our kind of key assumptions or requirements here. Some of it might not make that much sense to you, and I don't want to go into the technical side of things, but I do want to point out number 6. To make our projects work now, for them to be financially viable and to pay back to the community in which they're based, we're going to have to get donations. That we haven't worked out exactly what that looks like. We are talking to local councils that we work with about their carbon offset funds and trying to talk to corporate businesses, but essentially this is part of the problem when we put the economy before our environment. You know, it's everything's getting squashed, as I'm sure you'll all, I mean, I'm at a Green Party event, so I'm sure you all agree. I'm going to quickly skip through to the end because I feel like I've been talking for a little bit already. We are trying to get back to work with social housing. So we are working with partners big and small to deliver electricity that we generate on the roofs of these estates into people's actual flats. To do that, we effectively have to change the laws around delivering electricity, and we also need to create new technology to make it work. So we work with all of these companies to try and make that happen. We do have a tech team, but we don't see ourselves as primarily the tech interface. We are the human interface. We're the bridge between the communities we work with and these big companies. We want to humanize technology because at some point it is going to be rolled into everybody's houses. And we want that to be, we want the expectations to be realistic. We want it to be something that fits into people's houses rather than being another difficult thing that people have to interact with. So that's it. I mean, as I was saying, we use solar panels as a hook. That hook allows us to work with people and to bring further funding into an area. So we're not just trying to reduce CO2, we're trying to, in our little way, to model the regenerative economy. We want to encourage people to become more active while encouraging organisations to cede power and to be more people-centric. By creating these projects, we think we can change the narrative around energy and community and what life can look like. We want to support as many people as possible to change this narrative, and hopefully people like you will get on board and share this narrative, because the thing about stories is the more often that they're told, the more true they become. And so hopefully one day I won't have to tell you about the difficulties of these kind of projects, because we will have changed the narrative. We will have made things easier. I won't have to explain what community energy is, because everybody will be knowing about it, and we'll all be able to buy our electricity that's clean, that's green, and that's locally produced.
Absolutely brilliant. Thanks a lot, Dave. We really enjoyed that. And that was brilliant. I'd just like to say that I'm actually a shareholder of North Kensington Community Energy. I'm totally convinced by this initiative. Absolutely brilliant. So we decided the main Q&A session will be at the end, but we decided that we might take 2 questions. Does anyone have a question for Dave? You need to put your microphone on.
It is. Sorry, are you pointing to me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, okay. Yeah, at the end of the talk, there was fantastic, by the way. Thank you very much. You mentioned about laws that need to be changed for progress. Can you be more specific on that? What laws are you talking about there? Is that something that everybody can get involved with campaigning against?
So there is actually a campaign called the Local Supply Bill. Effectively, what it is at the moment is to supply electricity in this country, you either have to have a direct cable from your solar panel into your building. So that's what we do when we do work with schools, or you have to be an electricity supply company. To be an electricity supply company, you legally have to be able to sell electricity to anybody around the country. Now, we don't have many solar panels. And so we don't, and the setup costs for that, I think, you're looking at a minimum. I think Robin Hood Energy in Nottingham cost about £500,000 to set up. And that's not even their own electricity company. They're actually using somebody else's back end. So there's these massive, massive costs when actually all we want to do is to be able to supply electricity to people in the blocks. So we can't, the cost of rewiring the block means that it wouldn't make economic sense, and also the cost of setting up as an electricity company means it wouldn't make economic sense. So there's the electricity supply, the local supply bill, who I've never actually met, but they send me lots of emails and we support them. They're interesting to look at. Just as another bit to give you a bit of background on the finances, I didn't want to go too technical in the presentation. If you sell your electricity to the national grid, you sell it at about 5p per unit. But if you're buying electricity as a school or as a home or something like that, it's generally going to be from 11p a unit upwards. And so that's why we need to be able to make these projects work. We need to be able to avoid going through the national grid and losing that kind of 50% of the income.
Okay, we're going to take one more question before starting with the next presentation. So there is Shivan said, I wanted to ask, how willing are people to get these solar panels installed and taking part in this initiative?
Complex. That's a complex. So we often work with councils, and we find with the councils we work with, we have champions. However, councils are large bureaucratic organisations, and so whilst you might have so often people at the top really supporting it, getting it through all of the different kind of hoops that we have to jump through to access these roofs, get leases signed off, all of that can take quite a while. Also, if we're working with schools, generally they're really busy, and community centres as well, and don't have much funding, and so all of this kind of thing seems like an added extra. What we're doing seems like an added extra rather than a must-have. So people are generally quite up for it in terms of site owners. But it is a lot of work to get these projects off the ground. And then it can be quite a lot of work to raise the amount of money that we need to raise. Our last project, which was installing 145 kilowatts on 2 schools, we had to raise £137,000, which is a lot of money to ask people for. Most people invest about £150 to £200 in this project, or in these kind of projects. Obviously, there's quite a lot of people that you have to talk to, and you have to do a lot of events like this, and just be lots of places, which is where our volunteers really come into their own, because I can talk as somebody who people have never met, but actually if your friend or your family member is supporting this kind of initiative, it often encourages other people to get involved. You're muted, Alex.
I said brilliant stuff. Thanks a lot, Dave. So keep your questions. Don't forget about the presentation about Repowering London. Keep your questions. There'll be a main Q&A at the end. We're now going to move on to Willowbrook Farm with Dr. Lutfi. So Dr. Lutfi, when you're ready, just fire ahead.
Yeah, hi. Well, yeah, thank you for bringing me in as well. Just plain Lutfi is fine, please, in terms of the name. That was really lovely to listen to, the last presentation, and there are some parallels, but also massive differences with what we do. I hadn't prepared a lot of slides, but actually you'll probably get bored of looking at me, so I thought I will use technology a little bit here and allow you to see something about the farm while I'm chatting away. Also, I won't talk for very long. I hope what I can do is actually encourage a bit of discussion, so definitely do save up the questions. What we just heard about was a wonderful example of a project looking at urban England, and dealing with how do we get low cost energy, how do we actually pass this technology on, so how do we tackle the green economy. We're on the other side, we're out stuck in rural Oxfordshire, digging the soil and approaching the same issue but from a totally different angle. What we're interested in is how we can firstly connect ourselves back with nature as a family and be farming productively using traditional and sustainable techniques, but also how we can pass that on to other people and increase awareness, increase involvement. So, as I say, let me just move away from my very boring face here, and we shall have a farm. So I think what you're seeing now is a little picture of the whole family there. Is that correct? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, good. Okay, brilliant. So, well, as you can see, it's very much a family business. I'm the only one that you're seeing today, but there's the rest of the people involved in what we do here on the farm. And we all have our different roles to play. There are a number of things that we do on the farm, which I will hopefully show you if I can work out how to use this. There we go. So there we go. So, well, while I'm chatting, you may just want to see a little bit about what we do on the farm. We really want to get people involved in what we're doing and increase awareness of farming issues, sustainability, the environment, access to food, access to land. And that's a big issue because, we're really talking about an incredible control of land by non-minority groups. We don't actually have very much representation of Black or ethnic minorities in farming, and that's something is a systemic problem that we need to get to the roots of. So that's an interesting point, but we want to get people also just involved in the food issues and the environmental issues. We try and make that fun. We hold an annual festival, Willowbrook Farm Festival, Arts and Music Festival. If you haven't seen this band, for example, Songhoi Blues, you missed them last year, so sorry, you'll have to come another year. We're actually not running it this year, but we will be back in full force for 2021, hopefully. And that's a way to bring people for 2 days onto the land to showcase different rural skills and crafts and activities alongside the farming, alongside the animals, alongside what we're doing on the farm, natural, sustainable buildings, alternative technology, and various things that we're doing. So it's a way to sort of really not showcase us, but showcase the issues around around farming, sustainability, and connection with the land, particularly for Black and ethnic minority groups who are underrepresented across the board. In a way, the work we do on the farm, we feel can divide into these 6 areas that I think you can see here. If you can, basically, I would put it down to, obviously we're farming, and that's the most important thing while we're there. We were interested in producing ethically reared, naturally reared food, which met our principles. So in a sense, that also came from our Muslim faith, from our identity, that we felt very much that that was underrepresented, certainly even in our own community, that the issues of what truly halal would mean in terms of being natural, ethically reared, sustainable, was not being achieved. And there was very little awareness. In fact, so much so that, you know, the media and the Green Party can take a small blame, have attacked issues such as halal food production without even knowing what it really means. But then, you know, I wouldn't blame anyone for that, because most Muslims are consuming what we would call halal meat without knowing what it really means. It's a problem of the nature of food production, which we're all involved in. So that's one side of what we do, is ethical farming. But we felt that that's not the whole thing, because it's a lifestyle, it's a way of living, it's a holistic vision of the world around us. So sustainable buildings, something very important to us. We have constructed one of the largest earthen buildings in the UK on the farm. I'm not sure if I have a picture of it available somewhere. I don't think I do. It's an amazing farmhouse that we're now living in after having lived in tents and caravans and God knows what for a number of years. But we've tried as far as possible to use natural sustainable materials that we can draw from the farm. The clay obviously was all around us, straw and sand, and that's the only ingredients that you put into the walls of that sort of structure. But also it resonates with a lot of our heritage, which comes from various parts of the world, whether that's Africa or Asia. Cob and earthen buildings are traditional ways of using resources, which are, again, as I say, are sustainable, low energy, well insulated. We've tried that as far as we can across the rest of the farm with timber and various materials. We also value the biodiversity that's around us on the farm. We're not farming to the point of exhaustion, so we're leaving a portion for a whole range of animals to live alongside us and actually benefit from the improvements we're making, which include things like putting in 5,000 trees over the time we've been here. We've literally planted every single tree over the land, which are now 15 years on, developing into a natural woodland. We've built nearly every building, as I mentioned. Sustainable energy, we have invested in solar panels, we've invested in wind turbines, and we have a biomass boiler, which is making a good use of the timber we're planting with a sort of a net zero balance. So between the three, we hope that we're more or less sustainable in terms of energy use. We do have a small amount of electricity over what we produce that we need. But more importantly, again, we're showcasing this to encourage people to see the sort of changes that you can do. The last 2 areas, waste recycling, again, something we pay a lot of attention to. We want to be sure that we're not contributing and that we're actually on the opposite side, that we're actually reusing all of the resources in almost a closed system on the farm. We do a lot of recycling, composting of waste that we can compost back down into soil, mixed judiciously with the chicken poo and the various manures that we're producing on the farm. But we also recycle absolutely all the human waste, and that is not just the farmhouse and the farm buildings, but even when we're hosting events like the annual arts festival or our monthly open days or the weekly farm shop, all of the poo that anyone that comes to see us deposits is recycled for them on the farm naturally. And the last point, community and charity. We do our best, but my point is that I think it's not so much what we're individually doing. We do have a small charity that funds visits from communities that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to get out and visit the land, which we think is really important. focusing on really sort of Birmingham, London and Oxford. We've had a number of school visits, which I think they wouldn't have been able to manage otherwise. We've helped towards the cost of coaches to bring people out. But it's less what we're doing. I think the point is that these changes, the environmental challenge that we're facing, it is not just about environmental justice, it is about social justice, and you cannot separate the two. When you're fighting for access to land, whether you're fighting to enable communities that don't have access to cheap energy, as in the first case we were talking about, in all of these, you're addressing both an environmental issue, but particularly for Black and ethnic minority communities, we're addressing a disadvantage, a social injustice, which needs to be changed. So we hope very much that we're creating a space where these ideas can be discussed, and hopefully, at least in terms of access to farming and environmental issues, we're welcoming people out to sort of see what can be done, and hopefully encourage other people to take on that mantle and do better than we have. That's all I'd like to say for now. I hope actually I didn't cut out halfway through and no one's heard anything. But if that's the case and you have, I think I'd rather take a few questions at this point.
Great stuff. Thank you, Lutfi. Okay, so just any question? Okay, there's one from the, yeah, Aziz put a hand up. Aziz, do you have a question?
Oh, I was just clapping.
Okay, sorry. Okay. So, someone has asked, in what way would you say that halal meat is ethical?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first question is, do we consider meat ethical? If someone is vegan, not just a vegan, but someone who, in addition, feels someone who believes that meat consumption is valid, then of course what you have to say is, well, it's valid, but if it meets criteria, if it meets the criteria of being naturally reared, if it meets the criteria of having its welfare considered during its rearing and through its transportation, through its slaughter. If you put all of those ethical considerations together, which I think most well, sensible people, hopefully, who are looking at animal production would do, then if you can meet those criteria, then presumably you would be happy to eat the meat. So I'm not really sure what the question is. Halal doesn't represent a different thing. It's not a sort of an alien projection. You'd have to look at what you mean by halal when you're talking about the issue. Currently, what we consume in England is meat across the board, and a lot of that has a halal stamp on it. A lot of it goes out the other door and goes straight into McDonald's, or it goes straight into the homes of most meat consuming people in the UK. And the sad reality is 99% of all meat consumed in the UK, I would say, is unethical. That would include most of the halal production and most of the non-halal production. It's coming from high intensity rearing units, particularly poultry. There's a cocktail of chemicals that are used, and that even applies to cattle and sheep, which are further polluting the groundwater sources, polluting the environment. So no, that sort of acceptable. So no, it's not halal and it's not acceptable. I guess maybe, hopefully what the person asking the question wanted to know was a little bit more about what halal means then. Actually, if you take the time, grab a copy of the Quran and look at the index and see how many times the word halal is used in the Quran. It's used a number of times, but it's only ever used with another word, and that word is tayyib. So the Quran mentions the word halal, that which is acceptable, alongside the word tayyib. Tayyib literally means pure, wholesome, natural. You could interchange the word organic. And there's in fact one very clear verse in the Quran that says, they would ask you about what is halal, acceptable. say to them that which is tayyib, pure, natural and wholesome, is halal / acceptable. So by self-definition in the Quran, the word halal is defined as that which is wholesome, natural, organic. So I think there's a strong argument, but it's obvious, really. But sadly, we've gone so far away from natural food that there is a strong argument to say that clearly, if an animal isn't reared well, cared for well, killed in a compassionate manner, then it's not halal or acceptable. But we have to say that also to the vast non-Muslim majority in this country. We'd also say to them, seriously, guys, you're eating meat that's dehumanized, that's abused, that's treated badly. Is it acceptable? You know, it's not acceptable across the board, is my point. It's not a Muslim, non-Muslim issue. This is an issue of the lethargy into which nearly all of the population of the UK have allowed ourselves to be lulled, that we are consuming any old matter of meat. So to go back to the question, is it halal or not to rear and kill animals? Is it acceptable or not to rear or kill animals? If your opinion is no, under no circumstance it is, then yes, you know, remain a vegan, and that's your view. That's fair enough. But by the way, be careful where your vegetables are produced. Are they produced with a toxic cocktail of chemicals that are polluting and killing and destroying the earth in equal measure, it could be argued, to the livestock production? Yeah. So the question is not Muslim or non-Muslim, and it's not vegan or meat. It's about nurturing, maintaining and caring for the environment. And that can be done. You know, no one's going to tell the Fulani nomads in northern Senegal, who I worked with for many years, that they can't survive off their livestock, because there's almost no other permanent option for herders, whether it's the reindeer herders in Siberia or pastoral nomadic communities across much of the Sahelian Africa. Livestock is a sensible use of the land, and a sustainable one at that.
Interesting points. Okay, great. Just one more question. How would you advise other farms looking to transition to this model?
By the way, to finish the last point, using our animals alongside our vegetable production is essential. A mixed farming system that does recycle those nutrients is really important. Okay, how would I advise people? Gosh, I did think about that. One of the questions I think you'd asked it reminded me, it was basically, why did we do this? And a lot of people do ask. I mean, I was previously in a comfortable position where my life was ordered and organized, and I was preparing lectures, delivering them, going off on research trips. Very, very well-ordered, structured life. And then I threw that all away for this chaos. So I'm not sure. I think the only thing I could advise people is, don't think about it. If you have that wonderful idea that you say, hey, look, I can't eat this food that I'm not taking responsibility for. I can't continue to have vegetables covered in chemicals. I can't look at, you know, any more nasty pictures of how people are rearing livestock in factory farms. I should do it myself. And if you get that urge and you feel that that's the way you feel moved, then go and do it. But burn your bridges, sell your house, don't have any way of going back, and hopefully you'll make a success of it. But realistically, if you want sensible advice, we're happy to give you advice on the sort of things to do. There is an organization which we actually held the inaugural meeting of. There's something called the Oxford Real Farming Conference, which is like an alternative to the Oxford Farming Conference. And they hosted someone from America who set up Soulfire Farm, which is a Black American farm, which is promoting Black people going back to the land, people of color in general. And we've set up something similar in the UK, and the inaugural meeting was hosted on Willowbrook Farm of an organization called Land in Our Name, Lion. And it's a mixture of people, mostly at the moment in London, who are looking at getting involved in various agricultural enterprises. You don't have to move out into the countryside. There are a lot of small urban plots, which through negotiation with councils, you know, you can get hold of this land. You can set up community gardening schemes. There's a lot you can do. There's a hell of a lot you can do. So you can get advice from us. You can get advice from Lion. And hopefully start growing, get connecting, get your families connected to nature. that's what it's all about. I think, you know, you've got to understand what's going on. You've got to understand the principles and the struggles, but at the same time, we need that connection with the land as well to nurture us.
Okay, brilliant, great stuff. Excellent, wicked. Okay, Carl, it's now you on the spotlight. Let's get going.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And you know, some of you may be in other countries and so forth, and it might be morning or evening or afternoon. But I just really wanted just to say it's a pleasure to be here and to be with you, and I'm so honoured to have been invited to speak here today. So, so my name is Carl Stefan Hall. I am a small business owner in London. My background is that I am the first generation from parents that came over during the Windrush era. Ali, you've got your screen on.
Sorry.
No worries. And yeah, I decided to create a business in an IT business. I was always quite fortunate to have sort of computers in my life. I was inspired by a pop-up book that my related grandmother gave me, and from then on, I went on to develop a keen interest in technology. So I'm going to share with you a presentation that I created, which will hopefully give you a little bit more of an insight into who I am and what my company AGT is all about. Okay. So yeah, as you can see here, the founder of AGT, that's our lovely logo there. You can almost get from immediately from looking at our logo that, you know, from the green or from the leafy G, that we are an organization where my values and my ethics, my general ethics, are really running through the heart of this company. Okay, so and you'll get to understand what those ethics are as we go on through the presentation. So this is my team. Yeah, we're a very small team, as you can see here. So we are made up of multiple nationalities all around Brixton. I tend to employ young people from London, mainly South London at the moment. And we have Brazilian, we have French Moroccan, we have Jamaican, we have Barbadian, and British. So it's a really lovely melting pot, and it's quite symbolic and representative of the environment that we find ourselves. So this is what we do. Okay, so we service businesses as well as consumers, and we offer these following services. We do a lot of Mac and PC repairs and data recovery and so forth. Okay. So where we are, we're based in Loughborough Junction. Now, Loughborough Junction is a very interesting area, actually. It's in an area of South London in a borough called Lambeth, for those of you who don't know London too well. And Lambeth is not only one of the poorest boroughs in London, but Loughborough Junction specifically is the poorest ward. Okay, so what that means is that, you know, this particular area that we find ourselves right in the heart of is in an area of, you know, quite significant social deprivation. The crime rate is, you know, it's fairly high. It's higher than average, although, you know, it's never impeded us or anyone that we know. But more importantly, it's very, very underfunded. It's completely underfunded, and a lot of the initiatives that really would be helpful for getting young people off the streets and actually giving them opportunities to transform their lives just aren't there. So we're based in Loughborough Junction. We service, as I said earlier on, we service consumers. Okay, so how we service consumers is by providing sort of computer repairs and general IT support. Okay, we're very much we have a very much hands-on approach to our customers, and each of our customers almost becomes our friends, you know, and we know them personally, which is nice. We don't advertise. All of our business comes from word of mouth. And we're growing, so we must be doing something right. We also support businesses, so we provide business support by way of providing sort of IT contracts and also reselling certain services. So anything from phone networks to fiber optic installation. We do networking, and yeah, our business tends to come from word of mouth, and our business clients also find us through this method. One of the areas that we really love is actually working with non-profit organisations. This really gives us access to almost an instantaneous sort of thrill, really, and a real frontline view of how our work and what we do actually benefits the local community, especially those who are have various challenges in their life, whether they be medical challenges or mental health challenges, or just the challenges of their financial circumstance. So with these companies, we tend to offer training and consultancy, and we also partner up with funding bids that they may want to apply for as well. And then we also have an apprenticeship program. Now our apprenticeship program is, for me personally, it's like my jewel. It's like my jewel in my crown. You know, it's the one that, it's the thing that I really love. You know, because again, because we employ locally, we tend to get young men and women who, you know, wouldn't either have necessarily considered a career in IT, or if they had, just, you know, wouldn't know where to start. And, you know, we've had several apprentices come through our organisation, and by the time they've left, they are sort of Microsoft and Cisco qualified. They have a very broad range of skills and qualifications that essentially mean that they can really transform their lives by actually starting a career path that, you know, that puts them on an above average salary. So I've just got a short video here that I want to show you of one of our most recent apprentices. AGT is more than just a company that provides quality services to small and medium-sized businesses.
AGT seems to be at the forefront of using innovative approaches to get young people from the community into the sector and learning skills.
I started the apprenticeship program because there are a lot of young people out there, especially in the area that AGT is based, that feel like they don't have as many opportunities as perhaps some others. And I really wanted to provide those opportunities.
My college had a careers fair towards the end of the year, and AGT was one of the companies. Instantly, the technology intrigued me really. At that stage there, I thought it would be the first step for me into an IT career. Working at AGT, there's a chilled environment. The staff members do support you as well. I was definitely not the type of person to initiate a conversation, but during this apprenticeship I've definitely been able to improve my communication skills. I'm definitely much more confident.
AGT is really important for the Lambeth community because there really aren't that many businesses allowing young people to come in and learn on the job.
We have projects that we really care dearly about. We work quite often with mental health charities, women's groups, and we also have plans to work with young offenders and people who are coming out of the prison system and retraining them and upskilling them in digital skills.
The fact that they're giving young people my age the opportunity to start a career within IT, I think that's a great opportunity.
So yeah, so that's our apprenticeship program. So those are some of the key areas of AGT and what we do. So obviously now you've got a handle on kind of our work and who we service. So I'm an IT company. Why am I here? What actually makes AGT a greener IT company? Well, what makes AGT a greener IT company? It really, once again, comes from what is at my core personally. When I was at primary school, I had a teacher, and his name was Mr. Lodge, and he was way before there were campaigns about sort of like environmental campaigns and so forth. He really was somebody who had his finger on the pulse from a very early age, and he really inspired not just myself but the entire class, and had us become more aware of the impact that we as human beings are having on our environment, and why that way of being isn't sustainable. So this is something that's been with me throughout my life, and it felt only natural as I progressed through my IT career, having worked, everywhere from record companies to Apple and so forth. It then dawned on me that the companies that I was working for didn't align with my particular values. And I think that's one of the traits that an entrepreneur has, really. If they're in a position or if they're in a circumstance that doesn't actually speak to their own values, what an entrepreneur generally tends to do is to actually create something themselves that does. And so what makes AGT a greener IT company? Well, we believe that conserving the Earth's natural resources is a collective responsibility, and we are proud that our work and business supports this. So it's not just individuals, it's all of us pulling together. So by repairing, refurbishing and upgrading computers that may have otherwise been disposed of is one of the core aspects to our business. Okay, so where there's we'll touch more on this a bit later on, but this is one of the things that we absolutely that's absolutely key to our business. So really, what's missing is a circular economy within this particular industry, within technology, that promotes a culture of reusing, rescuing and recycling. Okay. So again, what we've tended to do is to not just have this be our ethos, but to also really use this as a platform to even communicate what we're all about to our customers. So every time one of our customers gets a machine repaired or buys a reconditioned machine from us, we always leave a nice little note. It's not handwritten, but we leave a little note, and on this note we have certain things and instructions, but we also sign it off by saying, by choosing AGT to repair or upgrade your computer, you are not only saving money, but you're also helping to support a local business that is committed to creating opportunities for all. Hence our namesake, all growing together. And that's what AGT stands for. So, electronics, all these components, all these little bits and bobs that are in our, everything from our remote control to our phones and our computers, you know, how do all of these things impact our environment? Well, e-waste. E-waste is a real problem. Okay, that's the waste components of electrical items, essentially. So last year, electronic and electrical waste reached around 50 million tons, more than the weight of all the commercial airlines ever made. This figure is expected to double by the middle of the century. So while a fraction of this waste is recycled, the vast majority ends up on landfill. And a group of UN bodies have come together to call for a global reboot to tackle the growing problem. E-waste often ends up being burned on dumps or by some of the planet's poorest people, with harmful consequences for both their health and the environment. Now, at AGT, what we do, we recycle any waste. All waste that comes into us, we recycle, and we also offer a free waste disposal service for our consumer-based customers, which our consumers and our customers absolutely love. You know, more than often, what tends to happen with stuff that would normally go to landfill is that we actually rebuild them and we repair them. They're used as maybe training machines for some of our apprentices, but more importantly, what we do with them once they're up and running, we find homes for them. So we recently worked with a local charity called the Ebony Horse Club, and it's a horse stables club in Brixton. And during this lockdown, this COVID lockdown, they recognised that a lot of the children that use their services and ride their horses couldn't afford computers. So one of the things that we've been doing is that we've been going through our storeroom and finding machines and doing them up and redistributing to them to organisations such as the Ebony Horse Club to then redistribute. So our planet's survival will depend on how well we retain the value of products within the system by extending their life. It's really that simple. We don't always need the newest thing, by the way. I just want to let you know, like, we don't always need the newest phone or the newest computer. It's a trap. So the other way that that our dependency on electrical components, the other impact that it has is on human rights. You know, so children as young as 7 are working in perilous conditions in places like Congo to mine cobalt, which ends up in smartphones, cars, computers, which are sold to millions across the world by household brands, including Apple, Microsoft, and Vodafone, according to a new investigation by Amnesty International. The human rights group claims to have traced cobalt used in lithium batteries sold to 16 multinational brands to mines, where young children and adults are being paid probably less than $1 a day, working in life-threatening conditions and subject to violence, extortion, and intimidation. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, what I haven't mentioned in this particular slide is the proxy wars that are being created. Yeah, those are the small, unregistered conflicts that are created between local, you know, strongmen or proxy armies, whereby they are competing over the land for these mines and these essential minerals, which these proxy wars are essentially nothing to do with, or, you know, have nothing to do with the companies that are actually demanding these components and these minerals. And you know, it beggars belief. I just find it's not only distasteful, but it's completely exploitative. So then the other way that our thirst and our hunger for electrical components, the other impact that it does have really is on with regards to our carbon emissions. Okay, so the computing industry contributes 2% of global carbon emissions. That's similar to the global aviation industry. The computing sector will also increase its carbon emissions by 6% per year due to the unparalleled demand for computing hardware, software, and services, analysts say. Right. So perhaps I'm hearing some of you saying, well, I've just got my computer and that's it. You know, I'm not really, apart from my electricity bill, it's not really doing that much. But what we're failing to recognize, and where there hasn't been much attention drawn to, is the demands that cloud computing is putting on the planet. So when you take a picture, when you're out and about and you take a picture of your cat, and if you've got your phone synchronized to Apple iCloud, or you've got your phone synchronized to Dropbox, and you take a picture of your cat, and then your cat is automatically stored on the cloud somewhere, that's your data, that's your data consumption, yeah? That's you consuming data. Now, our data consumption is rocketing through the roof. Why? Because there's companies like Apple and companies like Dropbox that are making it incredibly easy for us to be unaware of how much data we're uploading to their cloud. Now, obviously, they're doing this because there's a commercial benefit. But what we're not seeing really is the fact that your data, just because it's in the cloud, it doesn't mean that it's not stored on a hard drive. There are huge data farms. There are huge data farms, you know, in deserts, like secret, like high security, massive complexes that just have streams and millions and millions and millions and millions of hard drives. That's what the cloud looks like. And the cloud isn't this lovely fluffy white thing in the sky. The cloud is actually lots and lots of electrical components, lots and lots of hard drives, lots and lots of consumption on energy. Consumption on energy, not just to power them, but also the energy consumption to be able to keep all of that electronic and all of that machinery cool. Yeah, because if you're going to store millions of hard drives out in the middle of a desert that's generating lots and lots of heat, then you're going to need to find a way to cool that down. So because our data as human beings is now growing exponentially, it also means that the impact that we are having, because we don't necessarily know how to save our photos and our images to the actual hard drive or to something external, which takes up far less impact and is cheaper. This is the unfortunate impact. So, so yeah, that's me. This is why I do what I do. This is why I love what I do. This is why I've created this company, so that I can reach you all, or reach my staff, or reach my customers, and really make just some slight adjustments, some slight tweaks to their setup, to their belief system, that will actually help to, you know, make a dent really in you what is fast becoming a crisis. So that's me. I'm Carl, Stefan Hall once again. These are our contact details. Like, you can follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. It's our website address. If you need any, I know this isn't a platform to promote anything or necessarily to promote my business, but if you do need any technical support, or if you do just want to have a conversation around this, then please feel free to make note of these contact details and get in touch, and I'll be more than happy to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. That was absolutely brilliant, and that was so interesting. There's so many points there, so many interesting points. So just to take it to the floor, are there any questions you'd like to ask Carl? You can speak directly, you don't have to type it, you can just put the mic on.
Do you want to take Millie's question? Because I kind of have a similar question.
Okay, so Millie asks, thanks, Carl. AGT looks fab, especially the apprenticeships. Any tips on reducing cloud use? Analog photography, deleting social media?
Yeah, so my biggest tip on that is to actually have a local storage device. So, for example, I have, and we set up quite often for some of our customers, what are known as NAS drives. So that's NAS, which stands for Network Accessible Storage. Okay. Now, what these drives are, they are essentially, it's a little unit that plugs directly into your router, and they contain a minimum of 2 hard drives. You can have them up to 8 hard drives, but that's depending on your requirements. But a small little NAS drive, you plug that into your router, and what that will then do is actually give you a network storage. So basically, you have complete autonomy of, let's say, 4 terabytes worth of storage, and anything then that and it can be set up so that anything, like you take a photo of, you want to keep taking photos of cats, that's fine. It's getting stored onto your own server rather than getting stored somewhere in the cloud. So it's essentially giving you the exact same functionality as your iCloud or your Dropbox, but it's based in your home. And the great thing is with that as well, what you can also do is that you can, the same way you have with Dropbox or with iCloud, you can send out a link, a shared link, so that, Granny can see what your cat looks like now and the progress of your cat. You can do the exact same thing with the NAS drive. So the NAS drives usually, there's several brands out there. What the brand that we really love is a brand called QNAP. So that's QNAP. Okay, if you go to their website, you'll be able to see some details there. And the prices are fairly modest. They start at around £250, £200. And the great thing about those is that the other good thing about those is not only are you fully autonomous over your own data, which from a security perspective is probably a really good thing, but also because there's more than one hard drive inside this unit, if one hard drive fails, you haven't lost your data. So it's got built-in redundancy. So one hard drive fails, you get sent a warning or an alert saying one hard drive has failed. That's fine. You literally just buy a replacement from Amazon. It comes the next day, you put it in, and then you're back up and running. So it's got its own sort of insurance within it. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. Okay, one other question. Will all the extra home working due to COVID-19 add a lot of electronic emissions, do you think? How does this compare with carbon savings from less travel?
That's a really good question. I would imagine that it would actually at some point level off. You know, it may at the moment be less impactful than less traveling or than travel at the moment. But as I mentioned earlier on, it's only going to be a few more years before we really make a dent in and put a dent in those emission targets based on our thirst for storing stuff online.
Okay, cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is open up the floor to questions to all three speakers, Dave, Fuller, Lutfi, and Carl. So if you've got any questions, just go ahead and just ask them. Okay, I'm going to start with, should we be using Amazon?
Should be using Amazon?
Yeah.
What for? Like for, you know, like I don't understand the context of the question. Like Amazon provide lots of different services.
Okay, Rakesh?
Yeah, I can speak to that. It's around the workers' rights, and it's around not paying tax to the UK.
Yeah, okay. Well, there is definitely an argument for not using Amazon. I'm not going to sit up here and be hypocritical and say that we don't. You know, what Amazon does do, it provides a fast and convenient service. And one might argue that, you know, that, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely a point to note, definitely, but it's not really for me to say what you should and shouldn't do, really. You know, at the end of the day, the components do need to get to you. We do heavily rely on imports in order to repair computers or upgrade them. So yeah, you know, everyone's going to have a carbon footprint, aren't they? There's going to be an impact to whatever we do, you know, and it's about, you know, what we are able to manage ourselves.
Okay, a question for Lutfi. Someone has said, Claire Andrews has said, I'm interested in any challenges Lutfi encountered using traditional building materials, regulations, supply chains, skills, insurance, and mortgages.
Yeah, well, actually, we had the least challenges there. I think in terms of people of colour, I think the issues that we faced were, as you probably would expect, the actual planning issues of getting consent, moving onto the farm, coming from non-traditional farming background into a community that there's always going to be a few people, and we actually had this. So we had a few effectively sort of racially motivated people who took it upon themselves to argue that the sort of farming we would do would be bad, the sort of people that we would bring to the farm for open days would pollute the river. And so, you know, there was some clearly sort of racial tones to the objections. And those objections have a lot of weight with rural planning committees, possibly even in urban areas, but certainly the planning committees are made up largely of sort of white middle class residents who. So we face those issues. I won't go into it much more in our personal case, but yeah, as one would expect, that's what happened. When it got to planning, surprisingly, it was the opposite. Sorry, when it got to building regulations, it was the opposite. We'd got the planning permission finally after a long struggle. Maybe that's what I should be writing a book about. But once we got that planning and we went to building regs, they were quite on board. We said we want to build this naturally. We're using the local materials. They came out with some suggestions. In fact, I've never built a house before. I often say that the book I used to build the house was a children's book called Harry the Hippo Builds a House. And that's partially true. It was a really detailed book on how to build and where to put your pipes for your electrics and your water. So it was very much a self-build. All of the family got involved, and building regulations gave us a lot of advice, and they were into the idea of sustainability. Sadly, those issues of sustainability and natural building didn't carry any weight with planning, which we had to get over first.
Okay, thank you, Lutfi. Okay, I think this question's for Carl again. What would government need to change to make tech easier to repair?
Okay, so that's a really, really good question. And what the government really need to do, you know, certainly, if not the government directly, then certainly parties like Green Party, the Green Party, what they can do is start to really engage and support local, or not local, but support lobbying groups. There's a European lobbying group called the Right to Repair at the moment, and they are, what the biggest challenge is at the moment is that companies like Apple are making their computers harder and harder to repair. So once upon a time, you would have businesses like mine or individuals like me who wanted to, you know, either develop a business or whatever, would be able to, you know, with knowledge and with some studying and with some experience, be able to eventually learn how to repair machines and so forth. And also, you know, not only companies, but also individuals, you know, individuals wanting to repair their own computers, you know, to get into engineering. And what Apple have been doing over the last 5 years, they've considerably moved the goalposts. And they've made it incredibly difficult for companies, hardware companies, software companies, to be able to repair their equipment. And the impact of that is now that there is so much more stuff going to landfill. Not only so much more stuff going to landfill or electrical waste going to landfill, but what's also happening is that it's forcing customers and consumers to buy new equipment, which then fuels the demands for those precious resources that I spoke of earlier on. So really, for the government to get on board with organizations and lobbying movements such as Right to Repair, or providing considerable funding to organizations and non-for-profit organizations such as the Restart Project, which is how I met Alex, then, you know, that really would be a great first step.
Excellent. Okay, I just want to say that in Sweden, people who repair stuff don't have to pay VAT or tax or something. There's an initiative there in Sweden, and the Green Party are actually in coalition in Sweden, just to let you know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're going to wrap it up. We're going to end there. I just want to thank everybody. I just want to thank our speakers, our great speakers, Dave Fuller, Lutfi and Carl Hall. It's just been amazing. It's been a great experience. And I think people are clapping even. Let's clap. This has been great. And absolutely brilliant. Thank you for coming. And we'll just like to say that we have an event in July. If you are interested, it will be a social this time. The Greens of Colour are organising a social. Aziz, I don't know if you've got any slides.
I don't have the slide, but we'll be posting it on our social media and we'll be updating you all with the details for our next event.
It's on the 23rd, is that right?
On the 23rd, Thursday the 23rd at 7, it will be very, very fun. So if you hear from the beginning, you could tell my energy. That's the type of energy we're going to bring on Thursday the 23rd at 7 p.m. It will be on Zoom. So yeah, look out for our Eventbrite and we'll be posting it everywhere. So look forward to seeing you then.
So thank you, Dave. Thank you,